Now I'm going to discuss what balance means, both what it is and what it isn't. And so the reason why this is so important is because a lot of us feel like we're asking ourselves the question, which is more important? Living my life, doing the things that I love, spending time with family, going out and having a good time, or running my business or doing my job and making the money that I need. So a lot of times we feel like it has to be one or the other, which is why we're even having this conversation about balance in the first place. And so what do you do if you feel like you don't have a choice? Or what do you do if you feel like you've already left one side or the other behind? And what you do is you take a course like this, so you're definitely in the right place. And so in reality, for people who are self-employed, it tends to tip in the direction of work. If you have to choose, that is often the default. And so what we're talking about here is an idea like you have to live to work. That is how a lot of people live their lives. You're not working so that then you can provide the livelihood to live. You are living to work. It becomes all-consuming. And so what we're trying to do is help you figure out how to balance that out. And so why is it that this is such a problem for self-employed people? And actually there have been studies done that do show it is more of a problem for self-employed people, regardless of what way they are self-employed. And so why does that happen? Well, one is because oftentimes you end up blending the spheres of your personal and your work life together in a way that doesn't happen if someone is employed and they leave their home and they go to an office in someone else's company, and then at the end of the day they can walk away and go home. So it's a different scenario. So when you're self-employed, you tend to blend those two worlds together more. And another factor that leads to this happening is that as an entrepreneur or someone who works for themselves, you have more responsibility. So you feel like there's more things that you have to do legitimately. There are more things you have to do. Whereas if you're working as an employee, a lot of that responsibility falls on someone else. And so those two factors play a big role. But you want to know what? You're not stuck feeling like you're unbalanced because of it. So even though sometimes it can be difficult and you feel like you have different demands and needs and requirements and obligations all pulling at you in different directions, there are ways to get past it. And so one of the things that we have to get clear on before we get going here into more of the nitty-gritty and more tools and tips for you is to understand what balance really is. And so what we want to put on the table here is that balance does not equal equal. It doesn't mean equivalent. It doesn't mean 50-50. Because if what you're trying to say is I want half of my life dedicated to work and half of my life dedicated to my personal life, that just doesn't work. That's not what it means even in the slightest. And a lot of people that do try to be balanced, they try to just say I need to take time from one and put it in the other. But if that's all that they do, then they're going to be missing a lot of opportunity to really feel fulfillment in life. And it's because there is no formula. Work ebbs and flows, especially when you're self-employed. Sometimes you're really busy and sometimes you're not. And each individual has a completely different equation for them to calculate what balance would be to them, because they have different values, they have different elements of their life. And so we're not going to be giving you a specific formula and telling you what you need to do to balance your life. It's going to be up to you to do all of these activities and determine it for yourself. And so rather than thinking of balance going forward in this course as meaning making them equal, making these different aspects of your life all the same, what we're going to talk about is design. Balance equals design. So that means consciously designing your life on purpose based on your own values and the results that you're trying to get out of your life. This can be completely different than any other entrepreneur or self-employed person, just like a snowflake. So don't beat up on yourself if you feel out of balance. Most of us do. You're definitely not alone. And instead, look at the self-employment experience as a tool that you can use to actually support the life that you want to create, rather than feeling unbalanced about it. And so there's an activity that you can do that asks some questions to really help you define what balance means to you and to start to look at some areas that you might want to be working on to improve the way you feel about them. And so the first thing to do is to ask yourself, what are the top 5 most important aspects of my work life? and then also the 5 most important aspects of my personal life. And then you're going to rate them on a scale of 1 to 10, just, initially, to be able to determine how balanced you feel in each area. And then asking yourself, what does balance mean to you? Is it defined by time or some other factor? And then looking at all of that, you're going to be able to start to see what areas need some attention.